Hello guys, welcome back. So in this video I'll be talking about part 5 of this data driven test case creation, where I'm going to focus mainly on how you can read the data from Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so the very simplest way I'm going to follow, like on internet you will find a lot of lines of code, but I believe we do not need that much lines of code, and I'll tell you the simplest way how you can read it and put it in map so that it can be retrieved anywhere wherever you want. Okay, so here I'm going to talk about Excel, let's say read test data from Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so till now what we talked is we talked like we created this particular test case. Okay, and here everywhere we did hard coded the data, right? Now our main objective is to replace this hard coded data, right? So if you go to enter insurance data, you see I have hard coded all the data, right? So my objective is to fetch the data from this Excel spreadsheet and put it in respective test cases, right? So for that purpose I should be reading this particular Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so what I'll do is, first let me put this particular Excel spreadsheet into my project directory. What I'll do is I will save it, and I should be putting it in where is my project directory? Let me get the project directory location. Give me a minute. Let me right click on my project and properties, and this is my project directory location. Okay, so here you see, right, under test data, under source test resources, I have created one folder called as test data. Under this particular folder I should be storing my Excel spreadsheet, right? So I will just go to browse and I'll give my location where I want to put it. Under this I'll go to source test resources and test data, right? Under this folder I should be keeping my test data file. Okay, so now if I refresh my project, you should see. And why I kept it over there, ideally we should keep all our test data files into project directory itself, not any external location, because when I'm going to share this particular project, someone else will also get these Excel spreadsheet along with the code, right? So it should be within your code repository only. Now let us start one by one. Okay, so what I'll do is, under reusable component I am going to create one class called as let's say Excel reader. Excel, or I can call it as Excel operations, right? And under Excel operations I'll create one of, because see, in real time you might need to write the data as well back to the Excel spreadsheet. In current scenario I don't have that particular example, right? So I'll have read operation as well as I'll have write operations, and could be other operations as well. So I'll name the class as Excel operations. Okay, so in this particular Excel operations class, what I'll do is I will create one method, public void get test data. Okay, I'm basically reading the test data, right? So I'll create the method, I'll give the method name as get test data in map, because I'm going to get the data and put it into Hashmap, right? And why Hashmap? Because in Hashmap we can read the value in key value format, right? So in the test case, let's say what I'll do is I will read this particular complete row. Okay, I'll read this particular complete row and put it in map, right? And whenever I want to read the data from map, I will give something like map dot get. Let's see, if I want to read Honda, then I'll give map dot get vehicle make. When I want to read motorcycle, I'll say map dot get vehicle model, right? Likewise, and the same thing how it will happen in list is, in list it is index based, right? So if I want to read Honda, I might need to give list dot get to. For motorcycle, list dot get 3. So in that case I am not understanding like which field I am reading out of the data, right? Get 0, get 1, because that is index based. But if I talk about map, it is key value pair based, right? So that's the reason I prefer using hash map or map, right? Map is a interface, hash map is its implementation. We'll talk about. Okay, so now whenever I want to read Excel or any file, right, the very first thing is I should know its location. Where is my Excel spreadsheet? Where is Excel file? Second thing, I need to open file, right? I need to open the file, or I'll say I need to open the worksheet, or I'll say I need to open the workbook, okay, in standard terminology. Then read data row by row, okay, and put it in map, put in map, right, or hash map, right? So these are pretty simple 3 steps. Now let us get the location. How to get the location, right? So I'll put the location on the top because my location is not going to change. Few people might prefer giving location into properties file as well, so maybe we can do that as well. So let's say I'll say test data location, right? And my test data location is where it is. It is under source test resources. I'll say source test resources slash test data, right? This is what my location is, and I need to use double slash over here because I'm going to read it and store it into a string format. Okay, let's see. So this is my test data location. Okay, let me give the file name as well. So my file name is let me refactor and rename so that I will get my file name. I don't want to type this complete name. Okay, this is my file name, and yeah, so this is what my excel test data location is. But if you focus, this particular location is starting within your project directory, right? So I should first navigate till my project directory, like, and how do we do that? We do that by using system.get property, right? So that is something we will do. So let's say string, I'll say file path is equal to system.get property, and property, what is that? That is user.dir, that is user directory, plus I want to read the value from properties file, right? This config.properties file. And how do we read that? So to read value from properties file, we have created one class called as properties operation. Under that we have one static method called as get property value by key, right? So same thing I'm going to put it over here, right? So I'll call the method from properties operation dot get property value by key, and my key is going to be test data location. Now in this particular variable I should get the what's the error? It says default constructor cannot handle okay, because I am throwing some exception. Let me check. Okay, so here you see I am throwing out some exception out of this particular method whenever I'm going to call it. Okay, but like, see, I'm throwing it, so the caller should handle it, right? And who is going to call? Under this excel operations I'm going to call that particular method. But the problem is default constructor cannot handle the exceptions, right? So I cannot. Why it is saying default constructor? Because I'm not putting it in any of the method, I'm putting it in the class itself. So when it is in class itself, that means it will be handled by constructor, the default constructor, right? So that's the problem over here, right? So what I'll do is I will put this in this particular method itself. Okay, and it will ask me to throw the exception now. Okay, great. Okay, or what I'll do is let me create the constructor itself. Okay, what I'll do is excel operation constructor, and let me put it in within constructor itself. I can do this. Okay, and let me define this file path on the top as well because we will be accessing it somewhere else. Okay, there is no worry if we are defining it within this particular method as well, but if we define it somewhere here, then it will be like when we create the object of this excel operations class, this particular file path variable will get the value for its uh, string variable, basically file path. Okay, so I'm good. Okay, now I got the location. Great. Now how to open the workbook? Okay, now to opening the workbook, you will see a lot of code on the internet, right? So for example, okay, before I go that, for working with Excel spreadsheet, we need some dependencies. Okay, and what that dependency is, if I go to Maven repository, mpn repository, uh, give me a minute. Okay, let me search for Apache POI. Apache POI. Yeah, so this is the dependency basically which I want. Okay. Okay, so these two dependencies I would be needing, first two dependencies basically. Okay, and I would take the latest version 4.1.2. Let me simply copy it and let me put it in pom.xml. So this dependency we need because we are trying to interact with Excel spreadsheet. Okay, so whether it is Excel spreadsheet or whether it is any of the Microsoft uh, what I'll say, any product from Microsoft suite, for example, your Word document or your Outlook, or could be anything, right? So if you want to interact, you need to use this POI dependency, Apache POI. Okay, so I have added these two dependencies. Okay, now I'm good with dependencies. Great. Let me close this particular pom.xml. Great. And now, what's the problem here? Okay, so let us open the workbook. So for opening the workbook on internet, you will find lot of code. Like if the workbook is like in older version, that is version 2003 or prior, that is it is ending with .xls, then you might need to use something called as HSSF workbook, starting with HSSF basically. And if your workbook is starting from like 2007 version onward, that is it is with Excel SX version, then you need to use something like XSSF workbook. Okay, something like that, right? Based on the extension basically, right? But I will not go into this way, right? I will prefer the simplest way, right? And that simplest way is there is some method, there is some class called as workbook factory. Workbook factory dot, there is something called as create. Okay, so give me a minute. Okay, so here it is, right? So you see workbook factory dot create, it is going to create appropriate HSSF workbook or XSSF workbook based on the file extension. Okay, so I'm going to use this particular workbook factory dot create, right? And what does it return? It returns me a object of a workbook, right? So I'll say workbook WB is equal to this. Let me import workbook. It should be workbook. Okay, B should be in lowercase. Okay, now it is asking me for provide me the file. Okay, I know the file path, but I don't know where is my file, right? So I should create object of file first. File, I'll say file, and I'll say test data file. So two different thing, having the location, okay, but you should know the file. You should create object of file as well. The very first thing is file location, and second thing is object of file. File is the class in Java, right? So what I'll do is I will specify the same file object. Great. Now I have created workbook object. Okay, pretty simple. I have minimized a lot of code. If you see other examples on internet, you will see a lot of code for this. Okay, next, workbook object is created. That means if I open this particular Excel workbook work, or I'll say Excel sheets basically, that will be treated as workbook. Now if I do wb dot get, okay, then here you see I will be having one of the method called as get sheet, and I will be passing the sheet name. Okay, from which sheet you want to read the data. Let me open this particular sheet with system editor. Okay, and my sheet name is insurance premium. I'll just give the sheet name over here, right? So earlier this workbook object means whole workbook. In one workbook I can have multiple sheets. Okay, now I'm trying to get exact sheet, from which sheet I want the data. Okay, get sheet, what it returns, it returns me object of sheet, right? So what I'll do is I'll say sheet. Okay, and to make sure that you import it from the same package, org apache POI, which we imported. Okay, and sorry, and sheet sh is equal to this. Great, now I got the sheet as well. Okay, now from the sheet what you want, from sheet you want data row by row, right? From first row, second row, third row, likewise you want the data, right? So if I do sh, which is the sheet object dot get, okay, so here I should be having some method called as get row. Do I have anything called as get row? Yes, I do have a method called as get row. From which row you want the data, right? Let's say I want data from 0th row, and then from 0th row, from which cell you want data, right? So for that I have get cell, right? So from which cell you want data, let's say from first cell, right? And dot to string, so that it will return me data in string format, right? So if I write something like this, what will happen is it will go into this specific sheet, then it will go into get row 0, that is 0th index, that means the first one. It will go into this specific line, okay, first row, then out of that get cell 0, that means it will go into cell 0 and cell 1, that means it will list out, it will read this specific text tc name, right? If I write something like this, okay, now I already know how to read the data by using something like this. Okay, now what my objective is, okay, let me comment out this part for some time. Now what my objective is, my objective is to put the data in map. Okay, so in order to put the data in map, first I should create the object of hashmap, right? So I'll say hashmap, what kind of data it is going to be. My key is going to be a string, value is going to be string, and let's say it is hm is equal to new hashmap. Okay, so hashmap object is created, and I'm going to return the same object, basically return hm. Great, and I should change the return type now to hashmap. Okay, return type is changed. Great, now I have created a blank hashmap. Right, now how hashmap work, hashmap works on key value pair. So my key is always going to be from first row, whereas value could be from second row, third row, fourth row, based on which test case I am going to execute. Right, now in hashmap I'll be putting key as well as value. So when I want to read the key, I should be reading key from first row, that is from index 0, and when I want to read the data from actual cell or value, I would be reading the data from first row, second row, third row, and so on, right? So now what I'll do is I will put a for loop, right? Because I want to return the data from hashmap, right? Okay, so now the question would be here, from which row you want the data from, right? So let's say, as I told you, my key is always going to be from 0th row. My data could be from first row, second row, third row, and so on, right? So whenever someone call this particular method get test data in map, he should tell me from which row I want data, for which test case number, from which row I want data, right? So I will say, I will ask him that please provide me row number. So I'll say int row num, please provide me the row number, right? And so now I'll use for loop, because I want to iterate, right? So I'll say for loop, okay, for I is equal to 0, I is less than equal to, okay, now what should be at this particular place, right? So okay, so I would be iterating on your row. Okay, see, I already know the row number. Let's say I already know this row number, because that's what I am going to ask him, please provide me the row number. Okay, so row number is fixed. Now I want to iterate on column, that is starting from this column to my last column, right? So for that I should get the last column, right? And how to get the last column? So here I should be using sh object, sh dot get let's say get row, which row I want. Let's say I want get row 0, and dot get last cell num. Okay, so this will give me the last cell number. How? I already know the sheet. From sheet I will go to row 0. Okay, I'll go to row 0, that is the header row, and in that I will go to the last cell number, that is this cell number, right? That's it. Okay, I plus plus. Great. Now what I'll do is, okay, I want to put the data in hashmap under hm. Okay, now in hashmap, how we put the data? If I say hm dot, we have some method called as put method, right? And here you see we will be putting something called as key and value, right? What I told you is key is always going to be from first row and value is going to be either from second, third, fourth, or so on, based on what row number we are asking, right? So how to get the key, I already told you, right? How to get the data. So this is what I will get the data. So how to get data, instead of key I'll say sh dot get 0. This 0 should be always same for each and every data request, right? Because here I'm trying to get the data uh, for key, right? And here instead of cell I will say cell I, right? Instead of cell 1 I will say cell I. That means get the data from first cell. Okay. And what does get cell returns me? It returns me a cell object. Okay, let me convert it to string explicitly then. Okay, and now how to return the value? Again, for reading the value as well I will be using the same thing. The only difference is going to be, instead of 0 now, because that's the row number, right? Instead of 0, because that is not the key, that is actual values, instead of 0 I will put the row number. Please tell me from which row you want the data, and that's it. Great. Now I'm able to put the data in Hashmap. Okay, and the same Hashmap I'm going to return. That's it. Pretty simple implementation. Okay, but there would be one problem. Okay, what that would be, in case if your data is, if your whole spreadsheet does not contain string data. Let's say some of the cell in your Excel spreadsheet is having integer value, or some are having date values, some are having boolean values. Then in that case, for reading the data it is going to be problem for us, right? So what I do is, for each and every cell explicitly I do set the cell type as string first, right? So that first it will it will set the cell type as string, and then I will read the string value, right? So how to do that? I'll use the same thing. Which cell I want to set it for? I want to set it for this particular cell, right? Because this is the place from where I'm reading the data. My header or key is always going to be string, that I know, right? So that shouldn't be a problem for me. My problem is going to be only this part, right? Actual value. Sometime if it is numeric, then that is going to be a problem. So I'll say set cell type, and it asks me for cell type, what kind of cell it is you want to set it, right? So I want to always set my cell type as string. That's it. It says it is deprecated method. Okay, but that should be fine. I don't worry as of now, because it is giving me the simplest implementation. Okay. Are we left with anything else? Okay, I think this should be fine. Okay, let us test. Okay, now these things I already, okay, let us test. Okay, so to test, what I'll do is I will create one main method over here. Okay, in main method, let me create the object of this class only. Okay, excel of e is equal to new excel of, and this. Now if I do e dot get data in map, for which row? Let's say I want data for second row, right? And let's say what it says, it says me through an exception. Okay, and I'm going to print that particular data. What happened? I'm going to print it. Pretty simple. Okay, let us run. Now my Excel spreadsheet is open. Let me close it. Let me save it, not an issue, and let us run this Java program, because we are running a main method. Okay, let's see what has happened. Okay, and that's great. You see, I am able to read the data, right? You see, vehicle list price, triple eight, product start date, validation, test case number 2, right? That means the data is coming from second row, because I asked him for please provide me the data for row number 2, and that's the reason it is giving me test case number 2 data, right? So the data is not going to be in sequential order how you have added, because anyway we are going to read the data based on key. If I want test case name, I will simply ask the data with tc name, right? So that's pretty simple, and I think that's pretty much I wanted to cover in this video. Let me remove this main method. I don't want this main method anyway, because we are directly going to call this particular method called as get test data in map. Okay, so let us remove this unused import because this HHSF or XSF is taken care already by this create method from workbook factory. Okay, so yeah, so I believe this is the very simplest implementation. If you found more simple implementation than this, please do comment and let me know. Okay, so what we'll be doing in next video, in our actual end-to-end test case, we will try to put this data, whatever we are reading out of this Excel operations, under data provider, and we will try to run the data driven test case. Okay, so I believe that should be the last video of this particular data driven video series. After that, we'll start talking about our advanced level series. Okay, so yeah, that's it. Thank you.